on top of that, he doesn't, um, do so well in the interview. And so they're saying it wasn't just that he forgot to list these other entries, but now they're saying he like willfully, intentionally misrepresented a material fact intended to deceive the immigration service to get an immigration benefit. All very scary words. It's basically accusing him of fraud. I've certainly seen that issue come up before where the immigration service really beats up on a person who's been through really traumatic entry exit experiences. The memory after somebody has been detained, it's not necessarily chronological. A lot of the memories are so traumatic that they are suppressed. You have to also imagine that maybe this person, when they were being detained, wasn't fed, but once a day, usually something like a cold burrito. They may have been laying on a concrete floor under one of those aluminum foil looking blankets. It's kept very cold in those centers. They're terrified about what's going to happen. They lose track of, night and day, no windows. So the detention centers where they're catching people and holding them at the border are often very temporary holding facilities. And so they're not designed to spend that much time in, but oftentimes people are stuck there longer than they should be, right? And so by the time they get out, they're doing everything they can to heal from that experience. There's often a lot of like shame and guilt associated with having been caught coming into the United States, of course. And then the body tries to forget that, and the mind does forget it as part of a healing process. So it's not unusual for somebody to have forgotten how many times they tried to come into the United States. And they're also oftentimes, entries from so long ago. But at the time when somebody's actually at the green card interview or in the PIP interview, sometimes there's, a PIP interview before you ever have a green card one. If they don't remember each entry and exit very specifically, then they can be accused of not just having a bad memory, but actually having lied on the application, and then they're slamming them with a fraud bar. So if a person has been accused of misrepresentation of a material fact in a PIP application, then how do you get that waived or forgiven? Normally, that's an I-601 misrepresentation waiver. But the downside is that forgiveness, that waiver that needs to be filed, it has to be based on a qualifying relative who is not the U.S. citizen adult daughter. It has to be based on dad having a spouse who's a citizen or a resident, which is often not the case. Or the waiver for fraud has to be based on dad having a parent who's a citizen or a resident. And if dad had a parent who was a citizen or a resident, or a spouse who was a citizen or a resident, he probably would have already filed at some point for legalizing immigration status, right? So most of the cases that we see in our office where somebody got denied PIP and there's a fraud accusation, that person doesn't have the parent or spouse who's a citizen or resident that can be the basis of requesting a fraud waiver.